Sometimes I wish these were not webinars, and I think we need to do more just chatting. I'm going to share a couple of links today. One of them is we do these calls that are the first Friday of every month. And it's like a group of people that want to nerd out over AI stuff. They're really fun. And they're meetings, so it's not just me talking at you and you typing back. We're all kind of talking and sharing ideas, and they're just getting started because it's taken us a, a little bit to figure out like how we want to do those conversations. But if there's, you can also bring stuff to share. So that's every first Friday, and those are free. We're going to go ahead and get started because this is a little bit of a different webinar and one that I really felt was important because I think we're seeing the fast proliferation of AI in animal shelters, and we're going to be caught by surprise. And not just animal shelters, I think animal welfare organizations in general. We're going to see like so many more options to solve problems than we've ever had. And being thoughtful now and setting up now for all of what's coming is kind of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to only speak for maybe 30 minutes, and then we'll turn to questions because most of this is pretty straightforward, but I want to make sure if there's questions or particular things you want to talk about, we get to those too. So I'm going to share my screen and get started. Okay. Eliza, is my screen okay?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. This just showed up in my feed, my Facebook feed from 2 years ago. It's been 2 years that this was the first AI class that I taught. Since then, I've taught over 2,000 students through webinars, classes. We're on the seventh cohort of our 5-week course, and I just learn so much every day. And when I talk about AI, I want to be clear that I'm just like everybody else. I just have spent a lot of time learning it. But other than that, we're all just learning. So I learn as much from you all as I think you probably do from me. So I'm just sharing today what I think I've learned about AI policy and why it's so important and how we can kind of easily just get it done. And so we don't have to worry about it. But it's really been under discussed. So when we look at nonprofits, and this is new data that just came out, it's 2026 data. 92% of nonprofits report that they are using AI, but only 47% of nonprofits have a policy. This book is decent. It's a helpful thing to have. I think it's probably gonna be somewhat dated pretty quickly, but it is helpful if you're trying to build an AI policy. There's also a lot of stuff on the internet that I'll talk about. But this is a problem in an animal welfare. That number is even lower. So when I think about like what are we scared of in animal welfare, a few things come up over and over again. One is just the potential for biased outputs or discriminatory outputs, and that can be against animals or people. So we know that AI could be biased against, say, pit bull dogs. Simple things like that could be a problem for organizations. There's also PR risk if you are putting things out there that are AI generated or pictures modified by AI that could expose you to negative media. And then there's also like whenever you're in an AI platform, you probably see like there's all these opportunities to connect one platform to another. And so you can have 6 connected platforms, and that just increases security and data risk. But it's also sort of the systems are set up to encourage you to do that. So it's a real issue for us. Privacy issues, obviously, we don't want to expose private information or confidential information. And finally, legal and regulatory compliance issues. And this would be like if you accidentally violate like a HIPAA law using AI. Those are all things I hear about people worrying about. I'm going to use some examples that I've just seen kind of going around. And I want to say that this is no diss on anybody. I think it's really cool how people are using AI, but just to show you a couple things that concern me. So, like, this is someone that made a poster for handling dogs in shelters. And you can see they're recommending like this straight arm technique. They're recommending what to do if a dog is trying to attack you. If this person worked in a shelter that got put on the wall and they're say like these are not necessarily like approved handling procedures at a shelter and someone uses one and gets hurt, that could expose the animal shelter to liability. And AI's made it extraordinarily easy for people to create things like this. What worries me is a little bit different but related. One is that we're under intense scrutiny from advocates, and often a very small group of people that just are mad about everything and looking for reasons to attack organizations. And I worry about that because AI makes us a little bit vulnerable to that for a few reasons. And I also worry about how complex our work is, and that if we try to simplify it using AI, that could cause issues for us. And finally, I think we need to walk this very careful line of putting some guardrails in place, like putting some guidelines in place without stopping all the cool stuff that's happening and all the cool things people are doing. I have a couple examples here. One, the thing on the top is just a little screenshot from somebody who's working on this dog behavior decision support system. And in that system, it includes making live outcome decisions. I personally find that really scary. Early on, I could ask AI to make euthanasia decisions for me based on very little criteria, and it would. I just tried this morning to use ChatGPT, and I was so happy to see that it was like, ethically, I cannot tell you which of these three dogs to euthanize. So I do think, though, there's risk in people building things that automate processes that really need our input. Things like life and death outcomes. I mean, that's the most serious thing we do in our work. The screenshot below is so cute. It's from an organization that is using AI to make their kennel cards, which I'm so happy they're doing. I want everyone to do it. And I love this kennel card. Like, I think it's great. And something as simple as this could expose us to accusations that we're using AI and we're not disclosing it, because you can see that dog was probably put into a different background. I think that's fine. Like, for me, that's fine. But knowing that our organization is allowing AI modification of photos to some extent and then disclosing that is really important so we don't face those accusations. I hope that's not like I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. I think it will later if it doesn't now. And then finally, this is another handout, 5 steps to handle kennel charging, from somebody using AI to make really cool stuff. And you can see number 4 talks about medication. And, that would really worry me if that were being broadly recommended to shelters. And if this were spread more widely, because many shelters can't appropriately manage medication. I think it's like a great option, but this kind of thing being articulated as a best practice to orgs that aren't prepared to appropriately manage medication could be a problem. So my question is, I actually responded to this person and said, I love this so much. I'm worried about the medication piece. And I probably turned them off because they're hearing criticism. And I'm really glad they're making cool things like this. And I want us to be, as leaders, really thoughtful about what are we saying, because AI will just generate so much content that we're not always thinking about the consequences of something like this. Okay, here's a couple examples of things that could happen, and then we're going to move on because the risks that I think we think about, like the big stuff, like all our data is going to get breached. I think we're not thinking about the little things. So one is a public records exposure where there's an AI chat. Somebody has chatted and said, this employee is driving me crazy. I really don't like them. They're rude. And then that employee gets terminated and sues the organization. All of that chat that person had with AI is potentially discoverable. So we need to treat AI as discoverable information. Um, I think we could also see people using AI to determine outcomes. I talked a little bit about this, but like if somebody uses AI to make a life or death decision, that gets out, that can be a media story. I think that's probably going to happen to somebody. False marketing. So this is like if somebody actually does change an animal's appearance and then we get complaints that this animal wasn't how it was marketed. I think that probably is already happening. And finally, there is a reality of data safety, like that if you connect tools and you're not sure what you're doing, you can really get yourself into trouble and expose yourself to releasing confidential documents. So we can manage all of that pretty easily with the policy. This is like my North Star of all of this. And I've been teaching this since the beginning because I remember the days, and I don't know if any of you remember the days when social media came out, but like the knee-jerk reaction of I was working in local government. The knee-jerk reaction was like, no, nobody can use it. You can't use it at work. And, then everybody got cell phones and it was pointless. Well, people are going to be able to use AI on their cell phones too. And so I don't think just saying, no, you can't use AI or, oh, you can only use Microsoft Copilot. You can't use anything else. I don't think those are realistic. So number one, I think we need to try to mitigate the biggest risks. Two, we need to empower and teach people on our teams to use AI safely. And three, we need to make sure that we're using AI across the organization as an organization versus individual people using AI on their own within the organization and a disconnect. So we need to create like larger AI ecosystems. I built this app called Should We Do This? Eliza, if you're still here and could share the link, that would be great. It's actually on my webpage. I'll share it at the end, but it's a policy decider app and it helps you decide like, should we do this policy or is it going to hurt our bottom line? If I were working in an organization and have built something like this, like people in your organization are probably already solving problems by building apps like this. If I stifled that, I would lose out on something that is so cool. And this app is so cool. And if my boss had said, no, you can't use this, it's too unsafe to build apps, I would have lost out on so now like hundreds of people have used this to help determine policies. It's been a real game changer. My hero in my AI mentor, who doesn't know he's my mentor, is Ethan Malik. He's at the Wharton School of Business, writes a blog called One Useful Thing. I can't recommend reading his stuff enough. I feel like it has taught me almost everything I know about AI. He has a really practical approach to sort of the evolution of AI. He has a framework for how to integrate AI in organizations that I really like, which is leadership lab and crowd. So the leader needs to not just learn AI, but also to help paint the picture and kind of develop the vision of how the organization could change with AI being integrated. So for instance, one thing the leader can do is learn about how to reduce the administrative burden and let shelter workers do more of the work we really need them to do by integrating like AI augmentation or AI agents into customer service. That's like one example, but the leader needs to set the vision for how AI will change the organization. So learning the higher level changes that are happening is really helpful. If you are a leader, I learn a lot from like social work, how social work is implementing AI, how education is implementing AI. Those fields are a little bit ahead of us and can be really helpful. Second thing is lab, and these are like the people in your organization who are the early adopters, the ones that are making outputs like the ones I just showed you, and who like are really into it already. And those people are the people that form what he calls the lab, which is a group of folks who actually has time and resources allocated to working on the things that need to get done with AI. And then finally, you have the crowd, and that's everybody who figures out how to use AI on their own. So those are the people that are walking around using AI on their phones. What we want them to do is be pulled into this group and also inspire and teach their their peers how to use AI. So there are roles for everyone, and the goal is that everyone in the organization has some basic competency. Okay, so these are guidelines. I wrote these I looked at so many sets of AI policies. And so these are just some examples that you may consider. One is just, so these are like examples of things that you would make as rules for your staff. One is do not enter sensitive or confidential information into AI without specific written permission. I added the without specific written permission because sensitive and confidential is pretty subjective and it varies organization to organization. So there are instances where maybe you're using AI for customer service and you have to collect human names and numbers. So that could be considered sensitive. So you may want to give permission for that. Two, require human oversight and fact checking of outputs. I think this one's really important. I keep getting outputs sent to me that somebody put one prompt in, wrote with AI, and they are just terrible. Like they're embarrassing. I would never want them to come out from an organization. They clearly were written with AI. It's really important to make sure that all those outputs are reviewed and that someone's responsible for them, often the person that creates them. But we need to make sure that we're not just putting outputs out that we're not looking at carefully. And I think there's this psychological thing that happens where we see AI do something and we're like, yeah, no, that seems fine. Number three is that they should cite and record use of AI when it shapes the work product. This is being tried in a lot of universities where they know people are going to use AI and they just want them to disclose that. So you can have a process for that. Like if your volunteer coordinator builds volunteer training using AI, that's okay. They just need to disclose that. So it helps with transparency and it helps make sure that we're accountable for AI products. Number four, this is not so much a rule for staff, but a general rule, which is like an enterprise solution that you buy is probably your best bet for most of the routine work. So that would be like Microsoft Copilot or Google's version to have one solution that has some guardrails on it because sensitive information will get entered into that, and those enterprise solutions protect that information. Um, this rule, we're going to talk more about, but any tool used for work should be subject to a simple approval process that's really quick. We should not assign AI out to like one person in the organization and be like, you're the one in charge. You're the AI god here, and you decide what gets used and what doesn't. That's not a good way to go. It needs to be a quick process that involves a group of your staff or you that can approve or disapprove a tool. And I want to say clearly, I had to be pretty thoughtful about doing this webinar because I'm not an attorney. And so obviously organizations should consult their attorneys, especially when they're starting things like agentic AI or using AI for things that could expose them to risk. Finally, this rule I really love. I see it everywhere in different iterations. Instead of prohibiting AI use by individuals, you can just say if individuals use personal AI accounts for work purposes, they accept personal liability for this use. That is consistently articulated in various AI policies of local governments and nonprofits. Okay, we are going to do the quick part two of just like how you do this. This I put in here because one of the things that's happening is people are making a lot of really cute flyers and other work products. And the issue with that is some things may not be consistent with your branding. There may be something in there that you don't love. And it's okay to have rules about what people can share publicly versus things that are internal. Okay, so if you are, and I'm going to share these slides with everybody, but if you are getting ready to use AI or you're kind of just getting started as an organization, these are the questions that you and your team need to go through. I'm not going to read all of them, but you need to get some clarity on these to know where you're going. And there's questions that you maybe haven't thought of, like what will your budget be for AI subscriptions, and where will you see cost savings from that? Will you allow staff to pilot different tools? These are all questions that you get with your team and kind of answer. And I would say you're answering them for like the next 6 months, not forever. Because things are changing so rapidly that the answers today may not be your answers in a couple of months. So that lab that we talked about with your early adopters who are loving AI and using it, that creating that lab is like a first step because you need people that have the time and energy in the organization working together and regularly. This probably sounds so crazy to some of you, like no one has time for another weekly meeting, but this part is really important because if you don't do this, the organization won't move together. This is a AI governance starter guide, which is a great resource, but like who has time to go through this? Nobody, unless you allocate the time and space for them to work. They can do a lot of things. This group can work with the executive director or the leader to really manage AI in the organization as a collective. And they all these things I've listed here are things that they can do. But they need time to do it. And if you give them the time now and you give them some clear directives, this is how you'll have like healthy use of AI in the organization, and it will be time well spent. You also want to create a quick approval and pilot process for AI. And this is like if somebody wants to use a new tool. This image, which is so cute, this is like a Met Gala picture. And somebody used AI to put dogs into all these pictures of celebrities, and it is so cute. I think it was Hill Country SPCA or Hill Country Animal Shelter. It was the cutest idea, and I think they probably used Gemini. And that Google Gemini may or may not have been an approved tool for their organization, but they were able to use it. And this is where it's like if we restrict people too much, we miss out on great ideas and like the creative use of AI. So the the request process, and I have a sample document for you. It needs to be short, like really simple, and it needs to be approved in a defined time period. People waiting for weeks to months to have a tool approved is really frustrating. You can evaluate them based on like what they're actually going to do for the organization, how much they'll cost, what the risk is. But really, this isn't to overthink it. It's just to have a consistent process. And then you want to set up a way to track the use of the tool and then provide specific guidelines. Like if you're going to let someone use Google Gemini, you can provide a guideline that you don't want them using the connectors that would connect that to your enterprise solution or something that may be sensitive. This part is like, if you're going to do one thing, this is probably the thing to do now, which is to track all the tool use in your organization. And I'm going to give you a copy of this, but this one is key because AI is going to be used differently by different teams. But if you are paying for 1 million subscriptions, you can quickly start duplicating. You can have 3 subscriptions to Julius to do data. You can really get to a problem pretty quickly if you're not paying attention. And you also may be subscribing to like Gamma and Beautiful AI. Both of those develop slide decks. You don't need both of them. And so this is a great like way to just track what you're using and so that you can check in at any time. You also want to provide, I think, more support than you think you need for staff. Everyone should go through an initial training. That's something we do. I do like a safety training with teams. Everyone should do that initially to tell people how to use AI safely. And someone in your organization can do that as well. I think that gamifying AI use can be a really great thing to do and create incentives for people using AI to do adoption promotions, get animals out, etc. You want to be really clear about what is not okay with AI. Like, I'll go back to I would say it is not okay to use AI to make behavioral outcome decisions. So I may change my mind about that if somebody develops a really amazing tool and we know that there's data and research to back it up. But for now, like if I were running a shelter, I wouldn't want people doing that. I wouldn't want people I wouldn't want people like doing and putting in animal cruelty case data into an AI to search for that person. There's things that you may want to be careful about, and be clear that that's not acceptable. Anytime someone in your org wants to use AI, you want to help them. Like, I recommend you really help try to get to yes, because it's going to be really easy to say no. Some of the stuff people are going to bring you are going to seem crazy. And finally, you can have increasing levels of accountability and training for different AI uses as people use tools that may expose you to more risk. One of my team members built this. So we work with Riverside Department of Animal Services, and she built a really, really cool little chatbot for basic questions. Well, we're working with the government, and she built that chatbot with information that is not particularly sensitive. It's all public information. But obviously, I don't want to tell her, you can't do that. But I also want to make sure I'm going to that local government, telling them what we built and seeing, can we even use something like this, integrate it with what you're already doing? And if we can't, could we replicate it on a platform that's suitable for you? So I want to both encourage her and say that's amazing. And also, I want to make sure that we're following, like, we're not doing anything that that organization doesn't want, and it's compliant with the other tools they're using. So, if a lot of people are asking me about AI agents and augmenting customer service. Here's what you have to do, like right now, if you want to do that. One is that you've got to clean up your organizational materials and get rid of stuff that is no longer relevant, because what you'll upload into those agentic tools is your organizational information. And I work with shelters all over the country, and I see SOPs that like were written in 2001 and 1997, and no one's ever updated, and they're talking about catch pulling cats. People just really, I think we don't keep up with our organizational documents. And so right now, spend 6 months in your organization cleaning up everything, getting rid of the old stuff. That will really pay off for you when it comes to AI agents. Um, Create a document with public information about your organization, and like that document will then be used to, if you want to build like a chatbot, you can just upload that document with the FAQs, and that chatbot can start answering questions so that you reduce your call volume. People don't call as much because they're getting their answer online. Um, Figure out what success looks like when it comes to AI use. Like, does it look like you now can lay off 4 people because you have AI chatbots, or does it look like those people can be doing different jobs? Or maybe they're managing those AIs. They're doing more of the work you want them to do. They're able to provide more hands-on service. So you really want to think about, like, what are you trying to get to? Some orgs in reality are trying to achieve cost savings. So like if you're paying 5 people to do licensing, you should reallocate those positions to something else, and have one person that manages licensing. But those are considerations you should be thinking about now. Um, you want to look at your customer service workflows to determine where you can use AI. Like, if people are calling, asking the same questions about, like, what do I do when I find a cat? You don't need to have staff talking to them. Like, so if you map that workflow, you can see 50% of the calls we're getting are about this. And then you can focus on augmenting that piece to reduce that call volume right away. And finally, like, you're just looking at what services can either be fully handled by AI, or which can be augmented, and then which need to be managed by a person. So like a complex conversation about an owner surrender is probably not something that you want to use AI for. We finally reached the end of this. I promised you, what, a half hour, and I think we're on it. These are your takeaways. So this is like what I really recommend you do now. A is to set up your AI infrastructure. So do all of those things from that last slide. Cleaning up your organizational documents, getting things ready to be used in AI, and getting that group put together, that group of people that's going to be working on this, and allocate time for them every single week. Create a AI disclosure statement on your website. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And you also want to make sure you're giving staff time and allocating some budget to AI. So maybe your budget for AI is $100 a month, but that tells you how many tools you can have. and how they can be used. Hopefully it's more than that because the tools are already getting more expensive to use, and we really do need to think carefully about who uses them and for what. We should allow people to use them, but also really think about like, are we spending that money in the most effective way? You want to create an AI policy that's a living document and review it at least quarterly because it will change. Tracking your tool use in that one place on that one sheet, and then finally providing training, like both startup and ongoing training to staff. I put an image of my website AI page, and I'm going to share the link for that. It has all of our resources on it, but I'm also going to share in the chat a couple of documents that I think will be really helpful. I'm going to pull one of those up right now to show you. Okay, this document, let me make sure. Eliza, can you still see my screen okay?
I do
No,
not see a shared screen at this time.
let me share. Okay, sorry. Uh, okay, so, oh, I get up here. Okay, make this a little bigger. Now can you see my screen?
Spreadsheet? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna share the link to this in 1 second, but I just want to point to a few things. This is where I keep everything here. If you want to add to it, please feel free. Just let me know what you're adding, like tag me. But this is all the platforms that I use right here and what I use them for. Just put this section together for this website, or for this talk. These are policy documents I think you'll find really helpful. There's a couple of examples of docs here. I also have an example of an AI use request and approval form that you can use. An AI disclosure statement. That's like just gives you, here, I'll pull that up. Um, okay. So these are a couple examples that you can put on your website. It's really important to have one of these so that people know that you're using AI. This is an example. This is like the shortest example. My animal shelter uses AI tools to support some of our work. Here's what we use it for. All AI generated content is reviewed by staff before it is published. Just having that statement on your website will be very protective, but we gave you a couple of other options if you want to put something longer, but get this up now. You will be really glad you did in the future. We also have an AI policy template for you. And this template is just, this is, I created this with Claude using about 10 different policy examples. And this is just a template for you to use if you want one. And again, these should always be reviewed by your attorney and anyone else in your organization who has to review these. But this is just like a pretty generic template for an example. So we also, these are all like, this is an example from San Diego Humane, which they said we could share. But these should all be fairly helpful for you. And then I gave you the copy of the AI tools tracking sheet. And then we have some resources. These are things that I have read that have really helped me. So this spreadsheet, I share every time I teach because it's like bookmark it and save it. It has everything that you will probably need to, uh, okay, sharing that is everything you probably need. So I'm going to stop here and just ask if there are questions. I hope there are questions. Oh, thanks. Those of you who are here are really, I don't know how to say this. It's really smart to be doing this now. And it's like, it's going to be those of us that do this that are going to be able to breathe and actually do the fun stuff later. And I think for me, that's what like doing this now keeps you out of reactive mode. And we in animal welfare, we're just addicted to reactive mode. And this keeps you out of it. It's like you do this stuff now, and when everybody else is freaking out in about 6 months to a year, you're going to be like, I did all this and I'm good. So, what I would ask of you is if you do stuff that you're like happy with, if you do come up with that policy, please share that stuff with me because I love having it and I love your examples. And then I can share them with other people. And that's sort of like, it's just sort of proliferating. I'm doing a lot of work right now with individual organizations and just helping them kind of figure out what that first training looks like. So reach out if we can help with any of that. I'm just going to put, if you haven't seen the my AI page, it has all of our resources and tools on it. But we're trying to make sure that animal welfare doesn't get left behind again. I think that we risk that. We are so under-resourced and we often get really left behind in these massive changes and we can't afford to. So I appreciate you all being here. And we're gonna share this recording too so that other people can watch it as time goes on. And please come to one of those Friday calls. It would be great to have you there. They're really fun and then we can see your faces. So is yesterday's webinar available for viewing? Yes, I did a webinar yesterday, which if you went, I'm sorry, it was just, I walked people through AI tools for an hour. I felt so bad for everybody having to watch me, but it is recorded and it will be shared out by Adopt a Pet. So it looks like, oh, have you implemented these policies and procedures in any shelters and what has staff and volunteer reaction been? I've been working with organizations that are implementing policies and procedures in their organizations, and I would say that there are still a lot of negative reactions to AI use in general, and there are still a lot of people that are like, we shouldn't be using this, and it's terrible for the environment and the planet, and it's really scary. I think that's what orgs are struggling with the most now is the resistance to using it which I completely understand. And I would say that this gets you out of that problem. Like it kind of gets people away from that, focusing on that. But those are important conversations to have in organizations because there are ways to use AI that aren't quite as impactful when it comes to data use. Um, oh, great, Laura, that's really cool. Yeah, what's funny is I'm getting contacted by local governments who like want me to teach people not in animal sheltering because I just think orgs are not quite they're not quite there as orgs. It's all still individual. Roxanne says, how do you handle board members using their own personal instances of AI? Can you say more about that? I think I understand. Like using AI to prove a point or to make a policy recommendation or yeah. Yeah, I know. I realized that about a month ago, I realized, oh, advocates can use AI to make really mean memes of me. And people can use AI to really make any argument they want to. Okay, so I created this policy app. It's on that web link I sent you, the Outcomes for Pets AI, and it's called Should We Do This? I really suggest people use that because a lot of times what board members and advocates will bring are things they think you should be doing. The reason that tool is really cool, because it gives you only what the research and data says. So, like, if people bring you an idea, like, look, this says we shouldn't be adopting out animals to these people because they're poor or whatever, who knows. You can put that into the AI, the Should We Do This app, and it's going to pull up all the data and research. And it is so helpful to correct the stuff that people like the random ideas people have. And it's pretty reliable. Like, I really think it pretty much points you in the right direction on almost everything. But yeah, I think that's the other thing is AI is being weaponized against us already, and that is what we have to really be thinking about is like, the tinfoil hat research is now becoming it's proliferating just as quickly as everything. So I think creating really grounding yourself in data research best practices. I have a whole app I'm building that just pulls from the ASB guidelines so that when shelters are accused of X, we have something to point to. Unfortunately, animal welfare just we don't have a lot of best practice documents. I think, Dr. Pisano's handbook is a great one. So my tools reference all the best practice documents that do exist. Any other questions? Thank you guys so much for coming. we'll get this recording out. The class, our AI 5-week class is full for June, but I think we're thinking about adding an August session. Eliza, don't kill me. And we definitely have one in September. So please consider signing up for that. It's so much fun. It's totally worth it. Thanks you guys. I appreciate you being here and it's been fun and yeah, reach out if you want to just chat. I walk every day, so I'm happy to walk and talk about this stuff if you're working through problems. Have a good day.